This is the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom show, The Wake Up Call on WCOM LP, Chapel Hill and Carver 103.5 on your FM dial or live streaming at WCOMFM.org. You can also watch the show on the People's Channel after a week's delay on Thursday night at 10 p.m., Friday morning at 6 a.m., or Tuesday at noon. The show will also be available on our YouTube channel, Wilf Wake Up Call. I'm Iris Schwinzer here with our host, Lori Hoyt, and Emily O'Hare on the camera. Today, our special guests are Sonia Desai, William Jukes, and Miriam Thompson.
Thanks, Iris. Well, today we are celebrating workers. This is the Labor Day week, and it's an important day that I think people think about hot dogs and picnics, but don't think enough about what we're actually celebrating, which is the courage and the commitment of workers in this country for justice. We are so lucky to have the three people that Iris just told us, Will and Sonia and Miriam. And Miriam is one of our Will sisters, and we're going to lead in with Miriam, who, by the way, with Will, has been our labor chair and also with the NAACP. She works with the FFL-CIO, with all these organizations to promote justice for workers.
Okay, somehow we're...
Okay, so we're here celebrating workers. It's Labor Day week, and we're very lucky to have three guests, Will and Sonia and Miriam. And Miriam is a Will sister, and she's going to start us off.
I'm also a longtime union member with the American Federation of Teachers and the United Auto Workers in New York, and part of the Triangle Labor Council of the state AFL-CIO. I think it's really important, and I'm glad it's the Wilf show, because Wilf has really done extraordinary local and global social justice work. So it's appropriate for us to put worker justice in the context of our larger struggles. And I said, you know, at Labor Day, first of all, people should look up Labor Day. It's very interesting that May 1 is Labor Day all over the world, but they were too afraid of joining the lefty labor people all over the world, and so they set up September as Labor Day. It's an interesting history.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. You need to look at what the U.S. did, contrary to every other nation on earth that celebrates Labor Day. So we consider it every day. Why unions must survive as an institution to counter the kind of right-wing power grab we see throughout our history, close to fascism, by the way, and why the labor movement must plant its roots even deeper into the movement for social justice. It's very important to say that the struggle for social justice goes on internally and externally. Unions have always struggled against top-down leadership to make rank and file really the owners of the labor movement, and that struggle continues. And then I want to talk about union busting in the context of Trump's effort to enrich his own pockets and the pockets of his donors by giving away public land, denying climate change, playing golf as the Bahamas are drowning, and cutting back on urgent medical care for immigrant children. I mean, it's like one day after another. And then I'm going to close and open it up to the two, because I want to point out what he's trying to do to the American Federation of Government Employees, the federal unions. He's trying to not only kill democracy and suppress the vote and so on, but he's trying to kill unions by denying all federal workers the right to collectively bargain. And
Is he?
Oh, yes, that is the AFG petition that Wilf was circulating, and I want to make sure AFG.com, I don't want to forget that. Please take out your pencils for this broadcast, because there's lots of ways that you're going to be able to connect. But AFG.com has a wonderful webpage that's going to talk to you about their struggle. They're struggling in court. They're telling us what we can do as people to support the government workers. And we've got plenty of government workers around. You know, we've got the Social Security office and so on. And of course, they're trying to destroy and privatize public education, and they're trying to kill healthcare, and on and on and on. And of course, the environment and public land. So.
And Miriam, we've been living in a state that, being in the South, which has been very anti-union and union busting, we are living in a state that all government employees are not allowed to collectively bargain. And now Trump felt bad enough about our state, now Trump is trying to make it a federal.
I want to just point something out to the viewers. The state may prohibit collectively bargaining, but that's what I mean by having wonderful young energy that you're going to hear today. Because you can definitely have a role in the workplace regardless of what the state legislature says. You can organize, you can make sure that your voice is heard. So we should talk about that as well.
Yes, we can,
No
but-
law can
but you
stop
can't collectively
workers.
bargain.
Yes, you can.
You
Not
can.
officially, but you can make your voice so prominent and so loud and so angry and fierce and develop community support that no law can stop you from having your voice
Are
heard.
you talking about our wonderful
I think we
teachers?
should check the teachers and their great 20,000 people march. So we want to change the collective bargaining prohibition in the state, of course, because they were part of Jim Crow. They were clearly designed to take away the workers' voice. So
Okay.
I did
Sonia?
actually study that a little bit, coming here.
Get your mic up closer, honey. You can.
There are two bills in the General Assembly right now. They are bills SB 575 and HB 710 to repeal that general statute 95-98 to allow people to create a legally enforceable collective bargaining agreement. So please do call your representatives and support those two bills. I also, in my research, learned a little bit about the establishment of GS 95-98, which prevents developing that legally enforceable contract. And the history, as Miriam said, came from the Jim Crow era. It was established in 1959, and in response, I believe especially the UNC Board of Trustees put it through the General Assembly after black workers were organizing in CIO, the Congress of Industrialized
organizations.
Organizations.
So, okay, now we're going to Will. Hey, Will.
I'm very glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. Will is from the Democratic Socialists of
America.
but in this county, I guess?
Yeah, I'm one of the at-large officers for the Chapelboro DSA.
Chapelboro.
Yeah, this has been a really exciting time for us. The past 2 weeks, we participated in, we got a lot of members out to Labor Day Parade in Durham. It's been in partnership with our Durham members, and yes, about 2 weeks ago now, we helped CWA workers on strike as they struck against and won against AT&T. It was, and it's an exciting time because in North Carolina with such low union participation, and with many of our members only having recently joined, this was the first time that a lot of them really got to come out, show support and solidarity, and start to really learn hands-on about union organizing. They loved it, and we very glad for the outcome and very glad for the opportunity to show up for the workers.
So they have just recently got several new members, and this is the great way to really know what it's all about, to actually participate in the strike, and especially it had such a fortuitous outcome. That was great.
And also, I think that, listening to Will, this is an opportunity for working people, young
Yeah.
millennials, to revive and revitalize the
Yes.
labor movement. Because without a labor movement, this country is going to literally go to pot. Think about it.
That's why it has been.
Even as it's been declining in strength, and it has, the fact is there is no other movement except maybe faith, which is why labor and faith and the churches have always been working together, in partnership. And the CWA, aside from GSA and the other wonderful people you brought out, I mean, it just, the energy it gave to the workers to see people in the community supporting their struggle. So,
I actually, there was one CWA worker who I was really touched by what he said. He said that until we and other young people in the community started coming out, he had really lost hope in the labor movement. But then he saw he saw us coming out and standing on the picket line with them, helping, signal boost what they were doing and, try to find what their needs were and help supply those. And he was, he was really moved, and that was, I was moved, and I guess really kind of invigorated about our own power.
I also want to mention Labor Day itself, which was Monday. We all marched, as did CWA, that Will and Sonia mentioned. Sonia, of course, was driving, and we won't talk about that wonderful trip. But anyway, it was
For the
in
few
Durham.
who may not
It
know,
was
should
in
we say
Durham.
what CWA is?
Communication Workers of America.
Thank
It
you.
is one of the largest unions in the country. AT&T is only one of their corporate people, but they have a large AT&T contingent. But the Durham Workers Assembly was really what you were talking about, and there were several hundred of us that with a cookout and march and wonderful energetic voices. But I wonder if you'd keep going on the issue of how the CWA worker responded to the young people that were on the picket line, and how, where you think it goes from here, because now you know where the local is, you know their telephone number, we have a radio show to give them added space to talk about what it means to be a union member.
Yeah, well, I think, we were out there for a couple of days, and it's funny because I think one of the biggest gains was just meeting each other. Them meeting us and us meeting them, and starting to get comfortable around each other and talk to each other. And starting, first day it's very, the way it is around new people, but by the last day, we're joking with each other, more familiar, makes it much more, makes it much easier, I think, to work together. And it just learn, the biggest thing, I might have just called that the biggest thing. What I'm really excited about going forward is just to keep showing up for people, because what I really believe is that, and I learned this doing a little flyering for a union organization a while back. What people really respond to is when you show up for them and keep showing up for them, and eventually they'll be curious about you, no matter what the label is. And so I'm just excited that we've established that relationship, and we can now mobilize our members more quickly.
Can I just ask both of you, have you thought about, and if not, think about, what you could do as a follow-up? Because they have membership meetings. That's one thing where you can continue the relationship, and you know where the local's located. I assume they have an office. So what might you do following the picket line, now that they're back at work, to continue and nurture that relationship?
That's a great question. I think, what I would like to do is probably follow up with some of their members, and maybe try to invite them out to some labor but non-union events, or try and see, kind of gauge their interest in that. See if they're interested in doing anything in partnership with the Durham Workers
What kind
Assembly.
of events are you thinking about?
Like the Durham Workers Assembly, which yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. And also just, again, I think I wouldn't ever want to make a hard pitch to someone, like say, okay, quid pro quo, we sent our members out to your picket line, now, send some of your members to our thing. But I would like to talk about, talk about mutual interests with them, in hopes of developing a closer working relationship, and probably send people, our members who are interested in the union, out to some of their meetings, at least those that are open to non-union members. That's always that's a big one. It's just kind of sending envoys out.
They can also mentor organizing. They have a union background that they can share.
Right.
You can be union conscious. You don't necessarily have to have a formal union with dues. But you wanted to?
Oh, I would also want to talk to the workers more about forming coalitions with other local businesses, especially, and learning from them, like you said, Miriam, about what works and how to organize, because like we said, like Miriam was pointing to earlier, workers' rights are human rights. I mean, we spend most of our time working. The single activity I think that we most do in life. So how we are treated and our expectations of the workplace are expectations that should be, you know, that they need to be up to par with what we expect from a democracy and from healthy relationships. So
I just, I like the coalition idea, we should talk more. I thought we'd get into, and then you can respond in the context of coalition, additional labor solidarity. But WILF has been involved in 3 other campaigns. CWO is the latest. The AFG, and I can't tell too much about it except people need to go on their website because it's an exciting explanation of what the federal workers are confronting with Trump, how they're using the court system to really challenge Trump's violation of law, because they have a right to not so much collectively bargain, but to have access to their grievances and so on. But what I'd really like, that I'd love you to look at, is that they indicate various steps that people can take to continue to support them. So we should probably have another show and talk to you some more in DSA as to how we can support workers, federal workers, right in our community, because they really are looking for community support. They're looking for congressional support, and you know, we don't really have a very well-functioning Congress. I mean, we not only have a criminal president, but we have a Congress that doesn't work. The House is one place and the Senate is another. But there really is work legislatively what we can do for AFG. The other thing you saw, and you can talk about, but one of the most prominent participants is the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, which basically has been running the Raise Up 15 campaign. And so you might want to talk about that because they were there in force. Some of us have been on those picket lines. We haven't had Raise Up 15 on the show, but they've been out at the fast food, child care, and so on, and they were there in numbers with their red shirts. So what might we do in helping Raise Up 15? And then we'll talk about FLOC. Farm labor is dope.
So yeah, Raise Up 15 is a group that we've talked to a little. I think I joined actually because I was out at one of their events and trying to make connections, and they said, "Oh yeah, join," and I was like, "Well, yeah, why not?" But what they're doing, they strike me as a group that's done a really good job building their members up. They do some things that I was quite intrigued by. I remember talking to some of their membership about at events they try to collect enough money so that workers who are not getting paid for that time because they're not at work can get paid. That's critical, I think, because the other side has full time people working full time against labor rights. We have to do it in our spare time, and that's a really anything you can do to mitigate that is really wonderful. I know that right now our Durham members are actually, as we speak, they are with Durham Workers Assembly holding a Medicare for All assembly in Durham, and I think if Raise Up, I think they're a co-sponsor of that. If not, I'm sure that some of their members are interested in it. I think that the biggest, here in Chapelboro at least, we have had fewer opportunities to work directly with Raise Up, but one thing I'm very interested in is building more bridges between Durham and Chapelboro, and helping each other out, and hopefully
We haven't done work around with Raise Up. We should talk about that. I mean, we have fast food stores right here, and we haven't talked to SEIU or the organizers of Raise Up. People have to understand the demands of Raise Up 15, which is now all over the country, is not only a living wage, right? $15 from the pitiful federal minimum wage, right? $7.25, right? But it's also union. They want the right to have a union and collectively bargain, and this would be under SEIU. So we have fast food here that we've talked about, like Wendy's is here, McDonald's around here. We have lots of fast food places that we could get to know the workers. And
Let me ask you something, Miriam. We had, I think it's Susan Romaine on a long time ago, and that was about Orange County, about the 15 an hour wage.
That's
So
right.
is that different than?
No, it just spread it out. She was sort of working, this is Orange County Living Wage Campaign.
Thank you.
And they did a wonderful group of volunteers. Raise Up was doing it more with organizers. But Susan and volunteers were going to local merchants and getting them to agree and then posting it on their windows that we support a living wage.
That's fantastic.
And they have hundreds of merchants around that have committed themselves to develop a living wage. So we could help support the merchants and how grateful we are, not grateful, but how pleased we are to work with them, and really how honored we are to frequent their businesses because they believe in their workers.
So it's a long time since we had her on about the different merchants, but the campaign, which we've gone
Still
to,
going.
with you, to Durham particularly, but that's a little bit more expansive of that idea and working with some of the fast food
Well, it's
places.
localizing it. Raise
Yeah.
Up 15 is a national movement.
Yeah,
She took that, the living wage campaign, and
okay.
they decided to go around individually, to merchants.
Yeah.
So it's a complementary effort.
Yeah,
It's great.
but you're right, that'd be, when we were in Durham, we saw Julio Castro came to the Raise Up campaign. This is only a few months ago, and it was pretty.
Presidential candidate.
Presidential candidate
He was
Julio.
terrific with Reverend Barber.
And
Two of
Reverend
them.
Barber was there supporting it, which was very,
Hundreds, it was
Yeah.
really lively.
it was,
Right in front of McDonald's. We'd make
and even though it's a
noise,
little bit of rain, it was,
but a lot of
yeah,
energy.
yeah.
The other thing I want you to think about, unless you want to talk about this, but I'd love to have your ideas on Raise Up and how we localize it. But the other thing is FLOC, the Farm Labor
Yes.
Organizing Committee. I know GSA has been very involved in immigrants. Most of the farm workers are immigrants, and God knows what's happening to them and the farms as a result of the hurricane. But we've been supporting the Farm Labor Organizing Committee, which is now probably more than 40 years old. You remember Cesar Chavez on the coast with the grape workers? Well, the FLOC is working with vegetable and tomato and believe it or not, tobacco.
Tobacco workers, which is one of the hardest
The worst.
jobs in farm labor with all the pesticides, but not only that, the tobacco plants have a sticky substance that you can get nicotine poisoning when you're working there. So we had a small protest last night over right locally at Carborough Plaza at the Kangaroo Store.
It's
Yeah.
a Circle K
Circle K, also Kangaroo.
and Kangaroo and Mobile.
Yeah,
But the beauty of Circle K, what they're trying to do is to get Circle K to remove their, what do they call those?
Vuse.
E-cigarettes, Vuse, e-cigarettes.
Vuse is their big seller.
And get Reynolds Tobacco to finally, by that kind of consumer pressure, talk about coalition and talk about bringing workers and, us all together. So they are trying to persuade Reynolds, not persuade, but demand Reynolds sit down with FLOC, to provide a living wage to their tobacco workers, better housing, they live in hovels, and third, medical care. So it's really a great campaign.
It's a great campaign, and some people don't realize the connection that the Reynolds has a lot to say about how much the tobacco farmers are paid. And just when we had the campaign not that many years ago with Mount Olive Pickles, because they determined what the cucumber farmers would get for their cucumbers, which affected the wage. And so by going to the guy who's calling the shots, is where you have a big pressure point for the farmers. And that worked, that campaign took 5 or 8 years, and it worked. So there's
You
been
know how
some
old the Reynolds campaign is, how
And
they've been struggling with Reynolds. We've been at shareholders meetings,
Meetings.
talk about lots of places where, you know, community and young people can show up. And for them to see young people at some of these shareholder
Yes,
meetings, to put pressure on Reynolds would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So we're gonna grab you.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a short station break, and then we'll be back, so.
This is Will's Wake Up Call on WCOMLP, Chapel Hill and Carver, 103.5 FM. You can stream us live at WCOMFM.org.
Does anybody have any announcements? This is the time when we make some announcements. There is a big 350 climate campaign coming up, I think the 20th. We'll be talking more about it and as we get closer to it. There's a lot going on. I think tomorrow night, the Haw River Assembly is going to be having a film festival called Wet and Wild Film Festival at the Century Center. It is a fundraiser, so there will be a price for the tickets, but it's, Sonia, you know about it, you wanna say something?
I don't know about that one, but there's another event
Well,
coming
Go,
up
do
tomorrow.
it now.
Tomorrow
Bring
at
that,
You have to move the
move that
mic.
around, get it closer to
Tomorrow
you.
at 6:30 p.m. at the Art Center here, there is going to be a Carrboro Candidate Forum.
Oh,
Very
Yes.
important. So please ask our candidates about what they're doing to mitigate climate change, because that is the issue of our times, the catastrophe of our times.
oh, would you repeat that,
Absolutely.
because that's really
So
important.
tomorrow at 6:30 to 8:30, there is a
And that's
Carrboro-
free.
Yep, free. Come with all your good questions.
And I think NC
Carrboro-
Warren is the one who's sponsoring it because they want a lot of attention on
On
the
climate.
climate.
And the Chapel Hill one is Monday night at East Chapel Hill High.
Yes.
That's right. What date
So
is,
Monday,
is
The
that?
one for the Chapel Hill candidates is Monday night at East Chapel Hill High.
and then there's another one on the 12th for the Chapel Hill candidates as well.
That's the Chalk one.
That's the Chalk one. Yeah. Chapel Hill
So
High Road
there's,
as well.
as usual, we're very blessed in this area that there's all kinds of things going on. You can just fill up your whole social calendar with.
I want to mention something else we haven't talked about, but talk about workers and some of the ways in which they have, really suppressed populations, including women and women of color. So I want to talk about healthcare and power over our bodies, and that event is going to be Saturday from 8:30 to 8:30 to 3 o'clock.
This Saturday?
This coming Saturday, and it's gonna be at the Student Union Building, and when I look it up, I'll get you more information. And a telephone number to call if you wanna come, but it's free. They're gonna be serving breakfast and lunch, and they're gonna be really looking at the whole right of women to choice, women as workers, women's control over their bodies.
Is this the Fight for Her campaign?
Yes.
Yes,
Fight for
so
her.
it is this Saturday,
It's this
so
Saturday.
that's gonna be all
The
day.
7th, all day.
And it's free,
Student Union Building, and I'll give you the room number in a minute.
yeah.
So there's lots of, coalition work. and
Yes.
And by the way, and you talk about it, talk some more. There hasn't been, and that's why I said it's a real struggle in the labor movement. There hasn't been enough, but when it happens, it's most successful, as you've experienced. There hasn't been enough union, community, collaboration, and really important connection. So whatever ideas you have, this is a good time to share.
I would say I'm looking forward to students in public schools, especially locally, getting involved in, because oftentimes it might be their parents or their neighbors or who are personally affected by the working conditions, and that is a great allyship, and I would love to coordinate as well on that.
I'm sorry, like go into the schools?
Go
or-
into the schools, maybe talk with, I know that there's student organizations at the schools, perhaps there are ones currently working on,
So
civil
maybe go to
rights
some
or
of the
human
PTA
rights.
meetings, or things like
Yeah.
that. Well,
or the individual student organizations and clubs.
I'm gonna have you, and we should invite them to come. But there is a woman, we've had her on the show, I think, Lori Clark.
Oh, yeah, and then she's hard to
Lori-
get, we ought to get her on again.
Lori Clark, with you guys, Lori Clark is part of the, now I think they call it the Office of Equity and Inclusion. And under that are all the student leadership groups in elementary, in middle, and in high school. And many of the young people in high school, remember, are gonna turn 18 as seniors, and they're gonna be able to vote. And we need a massive voter registration campaign, and certainly we can put you in touch with the Office of Equity and Inclusion and have you meet with some of the important leaders that are pulling students together, something called the Minority Student Action Network, that's been working on disproportionate discipline practices and just raising voices of students in curriculum and classroom. And you're talking about really bringing labor curriculum. We don't have any labor curriculum.
Yeah,
We
that
don't
needs
have a
to be-
labor history. That would be a great DSA,
Oh
you know,
yeah,
kind of
labor
thing.
history is social movement history. It's all interrelated.
And
That's
right
right.
now, a lot of students are between two big issues, students seem to be very interested in, is gun issues, gun control,
Safety.
and the other is the climate. And a lot of young people are saying, we're the ones who are gonna be the most affected. And that's, I think, the nucleus of a really powerful movement. And I think tonight, there's gonna be on CNN, which I don't get, but I think that
9 o'clock.
some of the, starting at 5,
Oh, 5.
is gonna be some of the Democratic Party candidates, and the whole focus is gonna be climate. Not all over the map, but climate. So that's something to pay attention to, and if you don't get to watch it, check the headlines tomorrow, what they came up with.
Yeah, just to speak to what Neil was saying about the where does the labor movement cross social movements, and how can they work together? I think I talked some of the local IWW people that I talk to and am friends with.
Would you tell what international workers of the world?
International workers of the world, yeah. We have some active IWW members around here, and they've expressed the opinion to me that when labor unions were institutionalized between the 30s and the 50s, their ability to they were cordoned or pigeonholed into a very specific type of work, whereas before they had the freedom to organize labor in order to withhold the economic benefit they provide society in order to win any arbitrary concession that they wanted.
IWW was everyone was a union member. It wasn't broken down by industry. And what happened in the 30s, as powerful a movement as it was broken up by industry. And that when basically the unions were institutionalized and legitimized, that their power was constricted. They then part of the bargain was they could only deal with a very narrow set of workers' issues. It seems to me the destruction of erosion of those union protections clearly hasn't done anything about labor enthusiasm. Enthusiasm for the labor movement, and it presents an opportunity to return to a more powerful model, which I think the teachers' strikes a couple of years ago, the really big ones in West Virginia, they won political concessions for their students, and that was huge, and it was points to the type of thing that we're talking about, and it the realization of that sort of strategy in a way that hasn't been possible for a very long time. We are in the preliminary stages of planning some climate change and environmental justice related action that we hope we can bring
bring the labor movement into, because it is on something that affects the whole town. Well, climate change affects the whole world, but this is in our town. And again, it's very preliminary. May talk about it more at a later date, but we would like to absolutely like to leverage all of that kind of power we've been talking about for a something outside of the very narrow confines of how things are going in your workplace, as important as those are.
There's a lot of inter-union solidarity, so it isn't that they're so confined. They can move out of their confinement. You can work with the auto workers in the auto factories and support the communication workers, which many of them do, and that's the best of their leadership. I'm really delighted to hear about the climate change. I should tell you that the AFL-CIO, as part of the state, just had a massive conference, and I'm going to give you the contact, on sustainability, and really bringing, because there's been big union debate around environmental justice. Is it going to hurt any particular industry because we're going to lose jobs if you do this, instead of seeing it as an opportunity to create jobs with solar power and so on. But this was a real attempt to break that division in the labor movement around environmental justice
Versus jobs.
and that more jobs can be created
Exactly.
with a healthy environment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what I was speaking to before was not division between laborers in different sectors, but rather the sort of
Co-option.
the forceful narrowing of the labor movement's focus to issues in the workplace.
That's right.
And that is a constraint that in some ways the attempts to undermine the labor movement might be breaking down.
Yeah.
That's a really important point, because there are unions that are really, you've hit the nail on the head. That's what I mentioned earlier. There is a real effort of the most progressive in the labor movement to really talk about social justice, unionism, and addressing some of the important items that you've raised.
And that's where the teachers were so powerful. They didn't just talk about getting raises. They talked about social justice for the kids, for the community, and they kept that as a focus. So that made what they said so much more powerful.
And the lower paid workers, teachers are paid
not
badly
just
enough.
the
How about the bus drivers and the cafeteria workers?
Yeah,
So they were out there fighting for all the people who work in the schools.
Kind of going along with what the thread y'all were talking about, the workers have rights, I believe, to know what the effect of the work they're doing is, who they are affecting. It has to do with incorporating a moral economy instead of focusing only on, the predatory capitalism that has been occurring. And so I believe those are part of workers' rights as well. And once workers start to get that transparency, what they have a right to, what we all have a right to know, then we can start being choosy about, where we decide to work, and ideally, we can, this kind of goes along with whistleblower rights as well, which are really important to workers, and make sure we keep people accountable who are making decisions that affect all of our lives. So workers have a vital role to play, and labor movements can help that, including climate actions.
Yeah.
That really speaks to union leadership. What do you bring to the workplace? Not just answer workers' immediate grievances, but how do we change the workplace? And when you listen to some of these interviews, with individual owners and with their workers, and how they really change the whole culture, that's what you're talking about, really changing the whole culture of the workplace, to make it more democratic and stronger, because the more voices that are committed to making a workplace better, and then speaking to their community about what they're doing and how they contribute. And by the way, workers are critical in housing. Workers not on a living wage, and even with $15 can't afford to live. We don't have sufficient housing. By the way, we have to talk about Medicare for all, which is what one of you mentioned was going on tonight, because too many people don't have health care, or they have limited health care, or their deductibles are rising. So it all comes together, and we haven't spent any time, and I think DSA has, so maybe you want to talk about that, but we haven't talked about, as we often do, our military, and we're putting all our money into militarizing the society rather than putting it into the social justice issues that
And talking
we've talked
about climate, there's a whole movement now, and I forget where I was just reading it, that's the worst polluters are the military. We have these military bases here. They burn a lot of this jet fuel. A lot of the military bases have become so toxic. And then we're not even talking about all the oil and fuel that's used for all these planes that always practicing or whatever. So that's another huge issue, is the military budget. And that's what Martin Luther King talked about, the 3 horses of the apocalypse was militarism, poverty, and what was the third?
Poverty
I mean, that sounds bad enough.
That's enough right there.
I think that would do the trick. I think I remember reading today that the House just passed this is just a headline, I don't remember the details, but at one point, roughly $1.5 trillion military budget.
That's right.
Diverse.
That's right.
Yeah, so I figured out how we're going to pay for Medicare for all on the bright side. Just
That's
takes another-
exactly right. That's exactly what they should say. If you can afford a $1.5 trillion military budget of wars and supporting military occupations and starving with sanctions, and you can't afford it, and you think you don't have enough money for Medicare for all, good heavens, or affordable housing for everyone, or a decent education for everyone, it's
And hopefully,
stunning.
enough American people are
Waking up.
hurting that they're hopefully beginning to put 2 and 2 together about that. I'm hoping that we're due for some major transformation, and I think the climate is one thing that is going to push it along. And also, already in this country, everyone's so frightened with these storms and the flooding. I mean, you just turn on the news every night, and it's right in your face. And hopefully people start connecting those dots. That's what our organization, the Women's International League, we're multi-issue. Because, you connect, they're all connected together. We talk about labor, and we gotta talk about healthcare, housing, and the same with the Raging Grannies, it's multi-issue, and Socialist Democrats, I think you're multi-issue, you're trying to focus on what's really significant at the time.
Yeah, we're one of the key things about socialism in general, democratic socialism, is we say it's a comprehensive worldview. It's a comprehensive view of all of the things that are wrong with society. It sees them as interconnected, and it sees bring it back to the labor movement. It sees the labor movement as one of the major, pressure points, the most important pressure point where we can exercise power even if we are not by hook or by crook able to exercise it at the ballot box. Also,
And should vote, and then they should vote with their vote. That's right. And I did want to get back to the voting stuff. I was interested in the high school and what DSA is doing on campuses or among younger workers and students, because that's where it's incredible energy. I think there's energy among the young workers, and rank and file are beginning to demand more of their lives and their unions, and seeing how intersectional, interconnected it is. So I just was really, because I think the issue of student voice, first of all, it has to start in kindergarten. Young people, young students have to be trained early
I agree.
to have agency over their education lives and their social lives.
I agree, and I think it's up to parents to talk to their children as well about their workday and what they can expect from a fair workplace or an equitable workplace.
How about their education workplace to start?
Yeah, I think, the DSA actually, I think in the last, sometime in the last year, released some kind of policy or some sort of position statement to its members. I should know this better, but it's very arcane to me. basically saying y'all should be teachers. There need to be more DSA members should be teachers because teachers are at the hearts of their communities. And it is an excellent position from which to support the community, and as someone supporting the community, to have credibility talking about issues, to be able to talk to all the different constituencies and stakeholders within a community, groups that might not overlap on their own. It's a very powerful position to be in.
Oh, that is a wonderful
That,
campaign.
yeah.
Oh my goodness, especially because we're losing teachers. We're not paying them enough. They often can't find affordable housing, and so we're seeing a turnover. I think it'd be really exciting for people to take this as a major birth of their
Who are
social
politically
justice.
conscious.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Wow.
I was going to say also, you were talking about students and the YDSA,
Which is,
the Young Democratic Socialists of America. It is the college and high school affiliate of the DSA. Just had the UNC YDSA on campus. Just had one of their first meetings of the semester, and the general. The consensus among the leaders of the YDSA was they expected about 5 people to be there, and they got 40.
Whoa.
Yeah, and all of those kids are there. All of those kids are there because they want to organize and make a difference. And I think that's a big opportunity for us because in Chapel Hill, it's the economic heart of the county, and any social movement that can find a foothold at UNC becomes dramatically more effective, I think, because it is so much closer to the heart of a lot of what moves the county.
I wanted you to also address a major rally just 2 days before Labor Day, actually, and that was the anti-Klan rally in the anti-Klan rally in Hillsborough. And that was a teachable moment. There were teachers there with their classes. Go talk about it.
Yeah, that was a
Bring it up
fantastic
closer.
rally of showing full support of Hillsborough and communities beyond, to that saying to the Klan that they are not welcome here. They, Hillsborough believes in equality. They believe, and there were about 850 people, I believe, that showed up in response to the Klan coming to Hillsborough the previous weekend and in their robes. And apparently to that as well, there was an alert system, so people got notified that that happened, and then about 80 people came and counter-protested and showed the Klan that they were not welcome here. And the Klan's also been distributing flyers, so if you see those around on your doorstep, please don't pass them around, just give them directly to the police. Matt Hughes, I believe, is the person coordinating that.
Then you should know the Klan went in the night before, in the middle of the night, into the black neighborhoods and put, I don't know if there were swastikas, but hate stuff painted all over their homes. So I don't know if my idea was picked up, but I said after the rally we all go over with our brushes and water and soap and stuff.
Yeah,
wash
you
down
go to
the house.
Hillsborough and show that community some support and love. Make sure that they feel community support, because they need it right now.
yeah,
we're
and the scary
love
thing
to
is
help
that the Klan has been getting bolder. First they were showing up, and then they're showing up with carrying their guns, where you can see that they're carrying guns.
Which is illegal during a protest.
Yeah.
And then
Actually, there are arrest warrants out for 2 of those Klan members.
during the protest, but during the week, if they show up, unfortunately, I did not realize this, we have an open carry state, but you're right, during the protests in certain places, they're like on campuses or schools, they're not supposed to. But then the other thing, this was such a shock that they're putting on their full regalia with their hoods and everything. It's a long time, I've lived here a long time, and I saw that in the 60s. And I thought that days were long gone, but it's having a resurgence, and that's terrifying. And thank goodness all these people showed up. Is it gonna be again next Saturday, or is it just waiting to see it?
Even if there's nothing planned, go there and show love and
Yeah.
just
You want to
Hold a
get
sign on the
online.
corner.
I said, people get out your pencils, but if you go to the Hate-Free Schools Coalition Facebook, and you'll get all the upcoming events.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that's right up.
And that's our old friend Latondra Strong, who
Latondra
has been
Strong
on
is
the
one of-
show.
And Heather Redding.
there
And
And we
are,
should have
Heather
both of
Redding.
them on.
there are also tools online through the Racial Equity Institute
Yes.
to do the work of dismantling racism in our society today. So,
They're a training institute.
and they also have resources online
Yep.
that we can use, and there's upcoming
Good
trainings
point.
through Organizing Against Racism. They have caucuses which meet and work for anti-racism, and that's much needed now, and it affects our community's health and well-being, and again, I mean, our civil rights, our human rights to feel equal and to feel free. And if terrorist group is going around and terrorizing people, then that's a call to action to each one of us to say something and do something about it.
And I was very happy to read in the paper that some of the NAACP heads from different counties were there. And
goodness, especially because we're losing teachers. We're not paying them enough. They often can't find affordable housing, and so we're seeing a turnover. I think it'd be really exciting for people to take this as a major birth of their
Who are
social
politically
justice.
conscious.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Wow.
I was going to say also, you were talking about students and the YDSA,
Which is,
the Young Democratic Socialists of
Okay.
America. It is the college and high school affiliate of the DSA. Just had the UNC YDSA on campus. Just had one of their first meetings
Huh.
of the semester, and the general. The consensus among the leaders of the YDSA was they expected about 5 people to be there, and they got 40.
Whoa.
Yeah, and all of those kids are there. All of those kids are there because they want to organize and make a difference. And I think that's a big opportunity for us because in Chapel Hill, it's the economic heart of the town, of the county, and any social movement that can find a foothold at UNC becomes dramatically more effective, I think, because it is so much closer to the heart of a lot of what moves the county.
I wanted you to also address a major rally, just 2 days before Labor Day, actually, and that was the anti-Klan rally.
It's what?
The anti-Klan
Oh,
rally in Hillsborough, and that was a teachable moment. There were teachers there with their classes. Go talk about it.
Yeah, that was a
Bring it up
fantastic
closer.
rally of showing full support of Hillsborough and communities beyond, to that saying to the Klan that they are not welcome here. They, Hillsborough believes in equality. They believe, and there were about 850 people, I believe, that showed up in response to the Klan coming to Hillsborough the previous weekend and in their robes. And apparently to that as well, there was an alert system, so people got notified that that happened, and then about 80 people came and counter-protested and showed the Klan that they were not welcome here. And the Klan's also been distributing flyers, so if you see those around on your doorstep, please don't pass them around, just give them directly to the police. Matt Hughes, I believe, is the person coordinating that.
Then you should know the Klan went in the night before, in the middle of the night, into the black neighborhoods and put, I don't know if there were swastikas, but hate stuff painted all over their homes. So I don't know if my idea was picked up, but I said after the rally we all go over with our brushes and water and soap and stuff.
Yeah,
wash
if
down
you go to
the house.
Hillsborough and show that community some support and love. Make sure that they feel community support, because they need it right now.
yeah,
we're-
and the scary
love
thing
to
is
help
that the Klan has been getting bolder. First they were showing up, and then they're showing up with, carrying their guns, where you can see that they're carrying
Which
guns.
is illegal during a protest.
Yeah.
And then
actually, there are arrest warrants out for 2 of those Klan members.
during the protest, but during the week, if they show up, unfortunately, I did not realize this, we have an open carry state, but you're right, during the protest, there's certain places, they're, like on campuses or schools, they're not supposed to. But then the other thing, this was such a shock that they're putting on their full regalia with their hoods and everything. It's a long time, I've lived here a long time, and I saw that in the 60s. And I thought that days were long gone, but it's having a resurgence, and that's terrifying, and thank goodness all these people showed up. Is it gonna be again next Saturday, or is it just waiting to see it?
Even if there's nothing planned, go there and show love and
Yeah.
just
You want to
Hold a
get
sign on the
online.
corner.
I said people get out your pencils, but if you go to the Hate-Free Schools Coalition Facebook, and you'll get all the upcoming events. I'm pretty sure that's right up.
And that's our old friend Latondra Strong, who has been on the show.
And Heather Redding.
there
And
are
We should have
Heather
both of
Redding.
them on.
There are also tools online through the Racial Equity Institute
Yes.
to do the work of dismantling racism in our society today. So,
They're a training institute.
and they also have resources online
Yep.
that we can use, and there's upcoming
Good
trainings
point.
through Organizing Against Racism. They have caucuses which meet and work for anti-racism, and that's much needed now, and it affects our community's health and well-being, and again, I mean, our civil rights, our human rights to feel equal and to feel free. And if if terrorist group is going around and terrorizing people, then that's a call to action to each one of us to say something and do something about it.
And I was very happy to read in the paper that